Sometimes a house holds more than walls and more than history. It holds the echoes of everyone who ever needed it. Luna Cruz felt that the moment she stepped inside her great-grandmother Rosa's abandoned adobe home. The desert wind pushed through broken windows as she traced her fingers over dust-covered counters, trying to imagine the life that once pulsed inside these rooms. Mateo, her father, stood behind her, tired, grieving, and carrying the weight of mistakes, debt, and years of silence. They hadn't come looking for a miracle. They'd come because there was nowhere else to go. But the house greeted them like it remembered them, like it recognized the bloodline returning to wake it up. In the kitchen, they found Rosa's recipe box, each card written in her steady hand. Green chili stew, calabacitas, biscuits, each with a note of wisdom scribbled in the margins. Luna read them like scripture, each line a whisper from the past reminding her that food was love and that family survived storms by leaning on one another. At sunset, they dragged in sleeping bags a lantern and the last of their courage. The electricity was dead, the plumbing coughed in protest, but the house felt warm in a way neither had expected. When old Domingo, Rosa's lifelong neighbor, appeared at the gate and recognized Mateo instantly, something inside him loosened. "Rose, boy," Domingo said with a smile. "Your grandmother held half this town together. Looks like it's your turn." And in the fading light, surrounded by broken walls and buried memories, father and daughter realized they hadn't come to a ruin. They'd come to a beginning. They spent the following days uncovering the layers of a life preserved in cardboard boxes and metal tins. One afternoon, Luna found an old filing cabinet packed with documents, tax forms, receipts, and beneath them, a metal box sealed with tape. Inside were letters written across decades, from Rosa's children, from neighbors she'd helped, from people whose lives she'd touched during her years as the quiet backbone of this desert town. But the letter that froze Mateo in place came from his late wife, Carmen, written during her final months of cancer. Her handwriting trembled across the page as she confessed her fear of leaving them behind. She begged Rosa to remind Mateo that closing his heart wasn't strength, and to tell Luna she made life worth fighting for. Mateo's breath broke as he read the words he was never meant to see so late. Luna moved closer, resting her head against him. For the first time in years, they grieved together, letting the house hold their sorrow the way Rosa once did. Inspired, Luna organized the letters into a memory wall, a living archive of voices reminding them who they came from. She began writing her own journal, continuing the lineage of stories, beginning with, "My name is Luna Cruz, and I'm learning what it means to come home." Mateo felt pride swell in his chest. That night they read Rosa's 1989 journal entry, her children all struggling, her belief that home wasn't walls or land but the love that connected people. Luna closed the journal and whispered, "We're continuing what she started." And as the desert night wrapped around them, the house felt less like a burden and more like a promise, one they were finally brave enough to keep. Weeks passed and the house slowly transformed under their hands. They patched walls, repaired windows, and rebuilt the garden beds Rosa once tended with devotion. People driving past slowed to stare, astonished at how quickly the old adobe was coming back to life. But the real transformation happened inside Mateo and Luna. Their conversations grew deeper. Their silences grew softer. They were no longer two people surviving, they were a family healing. Then one morning, a certified letter arrived requiring Mateo's signature. Luna heard him swear, something he rarely did. She found him in the main room, face ashen, holding a document that felt like a sentence. Years of unpaid property taxes, more than $18,000, were owed. They had 60 days to pay or lose the house at public auction. Everything they'd built, every repaired beam and painted wall, could vanish into the hands of someone who knew nothing of Rosa or the love buried inside this land. They sat together in shock, unable to speak. Even with both working, they couldn't save that much in a year, much less 2 months. Domingo and Pilar arrived that evening, sensing the shift in the air. When Mateo showed them the letter, Pilar covered her mouth in disbelief. "She never asked for help," Domingo murmured, "even when she needed it." Luna searched county websites for any loophole, any lifeline, but all she found were deadlines. The house that had saved them seemed ready to slip away again. But grief had taught them something powerful. You don't give up on a place that once gave you everything. And despite the fear clawing at their hearts, neither was ready to surrender. Late that ends, Luna discovered something that changed everything. While scanning old deed records online, she noticed the property was listed as 15 acres, far more than the 2 they believed they owned. At first, Mateo dismissed it as a clerical error, but Luna pulled up satellite images, tracing the extended boundary up the hillside behind the house. "Abuela used to take me there," Mateo whispered, remembering old terraces, wild fruit trees, and foundation stones from a structure Rosa's father once started but never finished. The next morning, Mateo contacted the county assessor and reached Felicia Sandoval, who confirmed the confusing truth. The deed showed 15 acres, but only 2 had been officially registered in 1965. The rest remained unclaimed, unprotected by law, and therefore unvalued. "If you can prove continuous family use," Felicia said gently, "you can register the full acreage, and with that land your property value changes, your options change." Proof. They needed proof. Luna spread out journals, photographs, and decades-old letters across the table. Many documented Rosa tending hillside gardens, clearing brush, or carrying water up steep paths. Carmen's letters mentioned helping during drought years. Old photos showed family members standing with the hillside behind them. Domingo arrived that evening with elders from the community who remembered Rosa using the land. They signed statements, shared memories, and pointed out details only locals would know. The next morning, Mateo and Luna hiked the hillside themselves, climbing overgrown paths until they reached stone markers placed generations earlier. Terraces where gardens once grew. Remnants of irrigation lines. Trees still bearing fruit in tangled silence. Everything Rosa touched had endured the desert. Standing at the top, overlooking the valley, Luna whispered, "She left us more than we ever knew." And for the first time since the letter arrived, hope returned, quiet but steady, rising like the sun. With documentation gathered, Felicia promised to expedite the registration process, though it would still surpass their 60-day tax deadline. But even that sliver of hope shifted everything. If the land was validated, the property value would soar, giving them the leverage to request financing, payment plans, or community assistance. Meanwhile, neighbors continued stepping forward with the kind of generosity Rosa had once given them. Soledad Ortiz needed her fence repaired, paying Mateo in meals. A rancher needed a porch fixed. Someone else offered tools. Soon Mateo had a steady rotation of small-town jobs, some paid, some traded, all meaningful. Each time he returned home covered in dust or paint, Luna saw his confidence growing. He wasn't just fixing a house, he was rebuilding himself. Luna settled into her remote job, earning a modest paycheck every 2 weeks, and found herself no longer searching for apartments anywhere else. She started talking about next month, then winter, about the future in ways that anchored her to the land. One evening, as they plastered the kitchen walls by candlelight, Luna confessed that coming here saved her. She had been drifting after her mother's death, moving through life without purpose. "I was existing," she said, "not living, but building this. It matters." Mateo stopped working and looked at her with a softness she hadn't seen since childhood. "It does matter," he whispered, "and so do you." Together they restored the kitchen, the heart of the home, choosing a sage-green paint that reminded Luna of desert rain. Every repaired surface felt like reclaiming a piece of themselves, and with each passing day the house felt less like something broken and more like something becoming whole again. 7 weeks into the restoration, Luna found the metal box that reshaped everything they believed about their family. Inside were letters written over decades, some from Rosa's children, some from townspeople, and the final ones from Carmen during her last months alive. These letters were raw and honest, filled with fear, love, regret, and hope. Carmen pleaded for Mateo to keep his heart open, and for Luna to know she made life brighter. Mateo cried openly as he read the words his wife left behind, words he didn't know existed. They decided to frame the letters alongside the photographs, creating a memory wall filled with handwriting and history. That night, Luna sat with a new journal and began her own story, not because the past demanded it, but because the future deserved it. Every word she wrote braided her voice into the lineage that Rosa began. Meanwhile, Felicia worked quickly, encouraging them to gather witness statements, old maps, and proof of continuous land use. Luna and Mateo found everything from journal entries detailing hillside harvests to photos showing Rosa's gardens sprawling across upper acres. Elders arrived with stories that brought tears to Luna's eyes, memories of Rosa carrying water buckets up the hill, planting fruit trees and tending fields under desert sun. With every statement signed and every photograph logged, the land became more theirs, not by deed alone, but by heritage. Still, the ticking countdown of the tax deadline hung over them like a dark sky before storm. They didn't know if the county would grant them mercy. They didn't know if the bank would help. But they did know this: Rosa had fought for this land. Their family had bled into it. And they weren't going to let it slip away without giving everything they had. The day the land registration was approved, everything shifted. The county recognized all 15 acres, and with it, the property's worth soared high enough to give Mateo leverage he never imagined he'd have. Paulina, the bank manager who once watched Rosa feed her struggling family, stepped forward with a loan approval and something more meaningful: a personal letter of recommendation for Mateo's repair business. "This is how we keep the good moving forward," she said softly. With the loan, they paid the tax debt and secured the house. And then came the celebration. The open house gathering filled the adobe with life in a way it hadn't seen in decades. Children ran through hallways that once sat silent. Elders wandered room to room, touching restored beams and whispering memories. Food covered every surface: pozole, tortillas, tamales, recipes born from Rosa's handwritten cards. Luna presented a new tradition, a guest book open for anyone to write memories, hopes, or gratitude. The first entry was from Domingo. "Rosa, you would be proud, your house lives again." Teenagers wrote about second chances. Children drew pictures of the house with giant hearts around it. Felipe, one of the workshop apprentices, wrote, "Today I learned that broken things can be fixed, houses and maybe people too." When Mateo stood before everyone, the room quieted. He said they arrived with nothing but grief and a house falling apart, but the community caught them and carried them. Tears fell freely as he thanked them not just for saving the house, but for restoring the heart of a family. As the sun lowered, casting amber light across the desert, the house hummed with laughter, footsteps, and the warm pulse of connection. It was alive again, and so were they. Winter settled over the desert with gentle snowfall, softening the world with white. Inside the adobe, warmth radiated from the newly restored fireplace, filling the rooms with the glow of a place reclaimed. Luna cooked dinner, telling Mateo she'd begun seeing someone but wasn't leaving. "This is my home now," she said. "My foundation." Mateo hugged her, realizing the house had healed them in ways he never expected. The workshop behind the house buzzed with activity, teens learning carpentry and life lessons, carrying forward the legacy of help that Rosa once embodied. Domingo and Pilar planned to revive the old Thanksgiving tradition at the house, and the guest book grew thicker each week with stories, drawings, gratitude, and reminders that this home belonged to everyone who entered it. One evening, as snow drifted outside, Mateo finally visited Rosa's grave. He thanked her for the love she left behind, for the land she tended, and for building a place strong enough to catch them when they fell. Returning home, he found Luna setting the table, the same table that fed generations before them. They raised their glasses in silence, honoring the woman who started it all. "To Abuela Rosa," Luna whispered, "for building something that lasts." And in that moment, with snow falling, fire crackling, and 4 generations woven into the walls around them, Mateo knew the truth. The house wasn't just restored, it was reborn. It would continue sheltering dreams, drying tears, and giving hope to whoever needed it next. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Your support helps keep stories like this alive. Before you go, tell me, where are you listening from, and what time is it for you right now?